Hey, so what we want to do today is we want to talk about mean, which is what you know as the average from before, and we also want to talk about a couple other little things that have to do with that. Okay? So the first thing I want to do is just calculate a straightforward average of these marks. Okay? So if you'll remember, the way to calculate average is to take all your data, okay? So we take all our data and we add it together. So this is the average. We add it together. So 66 plus 57 plus 63 plus 68 plus 72 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers of data. So we divide it by 5. Okay, so that's going to make the average mark 66 plus 57 plus 63 plus 68 plus 72 equals, and then divided by 5. So 65.5. Sorry, 65.2. Okay, so that's our average. Okay, so that's what the average means. It's kind of the middle part of the data. Okay, so if we remember what the average means, it really tells us what's happening in the middle of our data. So if I take all these things and I combine them, what's the middle? Okay, now there's a couple more complicated things that we want to talk about, and it's how far from the average are all these numbers spread out? Are they very far apart, or are they pretty close to the average? And that's what we call the standard deviation. Okay, so standard deviation is what tells us how close to this number the average is. All right, so to calculate the standard deviation, we're going to use a little program on the iPad. Okay, Excel can do it too, but the program on the iPad's a little bit easier. And also, before we go on to that, I also want to talk about one other thing, and that's our discrete numerical data that we have for our survey. Okay, so for our survey, you don't have a list of marks. You might, for example, have level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have a number of students that have that level. So for example, we could have 5 students at level 0, you could have 6 students at level 1, you could have 12 students at level 2, you could have 13 students at level 3, and you could have 3 students at level 4. Okay, so what we do is we'll call this the actual entry, so that's what the level is, and we'll call this the frequency. So FREQ, the frequency. How frequently does this level happen in our class? How frequently does this level happen in our class? How frequently does that level happen in our class? Okay, so that's the terminology around that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use our iPads, and we're actually going to calculate an average for the class, and we're going to calculate the standard deviation, which is how good our average is. And I just want to point out that really all this means is that in the class, there are 5 people that have a level 0. So there are 5 zeros. And there are 6 level 1s. Okay? And there are 12 level 2s. Okay? And there are 13 level 3s. And there are 3 level 4s. Okay? So that's really what the frequency means. Now, instead of us having to manually add up all these zeros plus all these 1s plus all these 2s, we're going to get the program in the iPad to actually do it for us. All right, so here we go. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to find this program here, TI Inspire CAS, and you're going to open that. Okay, and now whatever the screen is, I want you to go up to the top here. So go up right to the top where it says Home, and I want you to discard your changes. Okay? All right. Now what I want you to do is I want you to press the little plus button, and I want you to add lists and spreadsheets. Okay? So there is what we're going to be working with, lists and spreadsheets. Okay? Now, I want you to remember that we had listed some levels and some number of students, right? So the levels, so we're going to go up here to the A column, right? So the part with the letter A, I'll double tap and I'll type on the letters so that I can name that column levels. Okay, and for you, this might be marks, it might be the number of TVs, right? So that's really going to be whatever your question is about. Okay, then I'll go over to B, and this one I'll call the frequency, and that's the number of people that are answering that question with that answer. Okay, so frequency, that's going to be the same. So instead of levels, you might have TVs or cars or the number of days that you might do something. For frequency, you'll have frequency. Okay, so for me, the different levels were 0, enter, could be level 1, it could be level 2, could be level 3, or it could be level 4. Okay? And then the frequency that we had written on the board, the number of people that got zeros were 5. The number of people that got 1s were 6. Number of people that got 2s were 12. And the number of people that got 3s were 13. And 4s, there were only 3. Okay? So now I can press this button to make the keyboard go away. And there's all my data there. Okay? So now what I want to do is I want to get the program to calculate for me a mean and a standard deviation, right? So an average, and then the standard deviation is going to tell us how far apart from the average the data is or how close to the average the data is, all right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the little tool there, and we're going to go to statistics. Okay, so I just want to show you that again. We're going to go to tools, and then we're going to go to right there, which is statistics. Okay, and then we're going to go to stat calculations, which is at the very top. And I'll click on one variable statistics. Okay, and that's the question that comes up, the number of lists. Okay, so for number of lists 1, I just want to click OK because I really have just one list of data. So there's my OK. And now I need to answer some of these questions. So my X1 list, that X1 list is the things that you're actually measuring. So for me, I'm measuring levels. So I want to click on this little arrow right there and I want to click on levels because that's my list. Okay, and then when I go down a frequency list, because my frequency list is called fric, I'm just going to select that, and everything else is fine. I can just click OK. So X1 list, that's the list that you're actually measuring. Frequency list is what we call frequency, and that's it. And now what the calculator's done for me is it's literally spit out everything that I need to know. Okay, so this little X bar, that is the average. Okay. So the average is right there, and the average level in this class seems to be 2.07. Okay, so the average level is 2.07. Now, if we go down here, this part is the standard deviation, 1.14. So what this says is that most of the class is about one level away from my average. Okay, so they're about one level within the average. Okay, so to summarize, the two numbers that are really important from that chart are the mean, which we write with X with a little bar on top of it, and that was 2.07. That's the average level in the class. And the other thing was this little sigma, which looks like an O with a little tail. That's the standard deviation, and that was 1.14. And what this says is that almost everybody is within 1.14 levels of the mean. Okay, so that means if I take the mean, that's like the middle. Okay, and this is how far things are spread out. So that means that things could be as much as plus 1.14 above the mean, which makes it 3.21. Okay, or they could be 1.14 below, which makes it minus 1.14. So that makes it 0.97. Right? So this is really how far things are spread out. So this shows that almost everybody in the class is between a level 1 and a level 3. There are very few people below level 1. There are very few people above level 3. Okay? So that's what the standard deviation tells us. Small standard deviations mean everything is close to the mean. Big standard deviation means that everything's far from the mean. Okay? So what you're going to do now is you're going to take these two numbers. So you're going to take the chart that you entered into the app, and you're going to copy that into Word. You're also going to copy the question that you used. You're also going to copy these two numbers, and you're going to tell me what they mean. All right, so that's your job for today.